So hi everybody, welcome along to this course on love and kindness. Please get comfortable in your seat. Try to make sure that your back is straight and your shoulders are relaxed. So we'll do a short breathing meditation. We'll say some prayers together, set our motivation, and then we'll begin the actual class. So being comfortable in your seat, allow the body to breathe itself. And being aware of the movements that the body is making whenever you inhale or exhale the breath. Allow the mind to just rest upon this movement. And with the mind resting, focused, imagine that all the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas appear above you. And in the center of this entourage of enlightened beings, imagine the appearance of Shakyamuni Buddha. He has a body of golden light. And you can see him, and you notice that you are surrounded by all sentient beings. You acknowledge that you have a wish to become fully awakened for the benefit of all beings. You wish to develop all of your own good qualities, to share your understanding with others, and to bring them to the awakened state. And so you say, I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. In response to your wish, lights and nectars pour out of the heart of the Buddha. They wash over you and over all the people surrounding you. And all hindrances and obstacles to become a genuine follower of the Buddha are washed away. Until all your good qualities are revealed. And you have the wish to establish all sentient beings within the four immeasurable states. And you say, may all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that is without suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. In response to this wish, Lights and nectars pour forth from the heart of the Buddha, wash over you and over all the beings surrounding you. And you find that these four thoughts are naturally established upon your mind stream. You enjoy and gratitude, you recollect the field of merit above you, and you say, reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginning this time, and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own and others' merits to the great enlightenment. Having purified the mind and accumulated merit, recollect that all phenomena are without an independent nature and exist in mere name. And prepare to offer this world system, yourself, and your merit to accomplish a non-abiding enlightenment for the sake of others. And then say, this ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamnayatayami. The offering is released. It's accepted by the Buddha, and he looks down at you and smiles with delight. You look up into his eyes. You see that his eyes are full of love and concern and bliss. Through the field of bodhisattvas, arahats, protectors, and so forth, begin to dissolve into the Buddha. That an emanation of the Buddha leaves his heart. And it moves through time and space and comes to rest above the crown of your head, facing in the same direction you are. The emanation descends, enters the crown of your head, comes down through the hollow of your throat, descends into your chest, and stops just above your heart. The light of this emanation begins to expand, filling your body and mind with light and nectars. And these now begin to pour out through the pores of your skin, filling the 10 directions of space. And every being which abides within space is utterly transformed into their enlightened state. Now the light begins to withdraw from the 10 directions of space and re-enters your heart. You can feel yourself breathing, and you know you're sitting upon a chair or a seat of some kind. And breathing normally and naturally, you can feel yourself embodied. And you realize this meditation was on the level of imagination, but it has imprinted the mind, left a condition for full awakening. And you've put into place the other causes, like the appreciation of this life you have, guru devotion, the mind of renunciation, and the other practices upon the path. And now breathe in deeply through your nostrils. Then exhale through your mouth. And then allow your eyes to flutter open. Move your body in whichever way you'd like to, until you feel quite comfortable and aware in front of your screen. So we've been doing, this is the second class on the topic of loving kindness. And these are some of the texts, the major texts I've been relying upon. In particular, probably what I've relied upon most of all at the moment is this In Praise of Great Compassion. Next week, we'll be moving more into the book by Alan Wallace and some of the material from the Steps on the Path to Enlightenment. Today's topics are how this affectionate love supports the perfections. We'll look at some of the different happiness types, because we often have this wish for others to be happy. And what is it? What do you mean by loving kindness? What do we mean in the West? And then we're going to finally look at what we mean by love in the Buddhist context. Now, if you remember from last week, this idea of loving kindness is a sort of sense of friendliness towards all beings. But it has this wish with it that says, may you be free of afflictions. May you be free of enmity. May you be free of anxiety. May you be well and happy. So this is a sort of mental attitude we're to cultivate and direct it towards others. Now, the others are, of course, other sentient beings. And when we extend love and kindness to other sentient beings, there are many, many benefits of having done so. So our last class was mainly focused on those benefits. Because other sentient beings exist, it's possible for us to develop all of our spiritual qualities, and it's depends upon them and our development that we can actually attain enlightenment. So enlightenment, as you are probably all aware of, relies us to have a loving concern for others, recognition of their suffering, and a wish to put an end to their suffering, which is combined with the knowledge that we can't do it in our present state. We need to actually become fully awakened. So we have this wish to awaken.
Peter, can I just jump in and remind you to put your camera on every now and again?
Yeah. So we have this wish to awaken, and then upon that wish, we engage in practices like the perfections. So loving others helps us develop the perfections. Now, the perfections, as you know, can sometimes be divided into 6 or 10. Here we've just got the 6. So we need to develop a mind of generosity directed at all sentient beings, a wish to abstain from causing them suffering. We have fortitude towards others, be joyful in the practice of Dharma, concentrate the mind, and develop our wisdom. Now, all of these perfections are focused upon sentient beings. And Arya Nagarjuna says, if those sentient beings did not exist, with whom could one be generous? If living beings did not exist, on what basis could one achieve the ethical disciplines of the Vinaya? So for this section, we're just going to look at the perfections, realize that all of them are dependent upon sentient beings, and because they are, we wish them happiness, freedom from suffering, and so forth. So generosity, generosity is directed towards others. In the perfection vehicle, it's primarily the thought of wishing to put an end to their suffering through the three forms of generosity. But here we're sort of encouraged to remember that the perfection of generosity cannot be developed without sentient beings. Not only that, but without sentient beings, we can't really develop the sense of ethics. So we need others to practice the ethical conduct of abandoning harm. As His Holiness said in Praise of Great Compassion, we cannot practice the ethical conduct of abandoning harm to rocks and trees. It really actually requires sentient beings. Again, Arya Nagarjuna said, for whose sake does the hero meditate on patience with those who commit a fault? For the sake of whom does he diligently work to achieve his deeply desired object of attainment? So of course, as you probably are aware, it is, of course, sentient beings. And sentient beings who are behaving in certain ways. So to develop fortitude, we need people who are harmful, are quarrelsome, are difficult and troublesome. So anyone who's been around a holy being like Geshe Zopa, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, or your own teachers, will know you don't really need to practice fortitude in their company, do you? I mean, they're just really nice people, right? So we just relax too. Our teachers don't harm us. So we don't develop patience in dependence upon the teacher. We need others. And most often the people that surround us or the people living with us at home. Then in terms of joyous effort, we want to become a Buddha for the benefit of others. Our desire is to attain the state of Buddhahood. And Buddhahood means that your mind has become enlightened and you have a body that's been developed in dependence upon these perfections. The perfections are developed by depending upon sentient beings. To attain the truth body and a form body of a Buddha, we do need sentient beings. Again, Arya Nagarjuna said, if living beings did not exist, how would one, by correctly depending on love, compassion, joy, and equanimity, attain the bliss of meditative absorption? So here you'll notice that these, depending on love, compassion, joy, and equanimity, are the four immeasurable thoughts. And they can produce the four deep states of concentration called jhana. When we practice the four immeasurable thoughts, we imagine that we are surrounded by all sentient beings, and we are sending out love, compassion, and joy in all the directions of space. And within these directions of space are all sentient beings. Again, Arya Nagarjuna says, knowing the functioning and non-functioning bliss of liberation, presenting dispositions, attitudes, and tendencies, the thoroughly afflicted or completely pure. If sentient beings do not exist, how could those be known? You can see there's a lot of ways of looking at sentient beings. And this verse here primarily has to do with wisdom. And it mentions here the thoroughly afflicted or completely pure. So these are two ways of categorizing sentient beings who are either within the throes of samsara or on their way out or completely free. So the thoroughly afflicted in that category are the truths of suffering and the truth of origin. In the completely pure category are the truths of cessation and path. Functioning and non-functioning, this is referring to the two truths. So in summary, Arya Shantideva sums up, really, really beautifully, really well. He says, whatever joy there is in this world, all comes from desiring others to be happy. And whatever suffering there is in this world, all comes from desiring myself to be happy. So I remember when I first heard this verse read out by Khensa Rinpoche, Geshe Tashi Sering at our Lagme Tangpa Center, it really had quite an impact on me. Because I kept thinking about, actually all I've done for all of my life until I've come to the Dharma Center was desire myself to be happy. And I wasn't. And here he says, it's actually when the focus is primarily upon yourself, that's what happens. I need to shift my focus. So probably many of you might have discovered the same sort of thing. So all these previous verses and the verses by Nagarjuna and the slides I've put up all show the value and necessity of benefiting sentient beings, being concerned for their welfare and making this wish that they be happy, and then actually engaging activities to bring that happiness about. So our next two slides, one is called What's Interesting. So this is where you guys can bring up any concerns or anything that you might find interesting or anything you might be a qualm. And if there aren't any, or when they're finished, then we'll move on and we'll do a brief meditation.
Eddie, I've got a question, but also can you just take the slide away so we can see you? It's a pretty mean question, but like with the perfections, I can't help thinking they beg the question because if there weren't disgruntled people, for instance, then I wouldn't have to develop patience. So, like how what I just keep on thinking, why is it me that has to develop patience? Why can't I just get rid of the disgruntled people? Like I know it's
I think that's a common attitude. I think most people sort of think that at some stage, don't they? It's just, and
it's embarrassing to think that way, but there is, well, I probably feel that way. I don't think that way, but I feel that way.
Yep. And as a beginner, without this attitude of, without this wish to become a Buddha, a fully awakened being, then the most common method is just to walk away, isn't it? Separate ourselves from separate ourselves from these difficult people. But by separating ourselves from the difficult people like that, and saying, well, it's their problem, basically, go away or I'm going away, we cannot develop this quality of forbearance or patience. So becoming enlightened takes a long time. And there are going to be, we know already that we meet difficult people. And what often happens is resentment or aversion. So with these two mental qualities arising naturally towards difficult people, there's no way to become awakened. There's no way to awaken our potential. But
Thanks.
if we have this goal, if we do wish to, like I said, develop enlightenment, which is depend, as you know, upon that great compassion, a wish to do this, so we need concentration, of course, wisdom. So, none of those qualities will be developed. We basically just stay the same. Anybody else? Barbara, yeah.
I know something that Venerable Rabina said that really stuck with me is those disgruntled people or those people that challenge us, that's grist for our mill.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we develop. If we didn't have them, how would we develop those skills?
Yeah, that's right.
Grist,
Back
for,
to, yeah.
grist for the mill. Love it.
That's right. Okay, let's have a look then and at our meditation. So again, just please just get comfortable in your seat. Adjust your posture. So this won't take very long. So just allow yourself to breathe normally and naturally.
Eddie, can you just put yourself up on the screen, because you go a little quiet when you lead the meditation. It's hard to.
So imagine yourself surrounded by all beings. And that you realize that it's in dependence upon them that you can develop the 6 perfections. So if you develop the perfection of generosity, you require others. Imagine some form of generosity that you could extend to others. So now imagine those people have what you have imagined them to have. They have all the requisites for life. They've got food, shelter, clothing, and medicine. They're in good health. They have harmonious relations. They're safe. They have money and possessions. What could you offer them to accomplish the perfection of generosity? Acknowledge that you could offer them the Dharma, that although they have all the requisites for life, still it does not assure their long-term happiness. So imagine all these requisites, food, shelter, clothing, medicine, and all the other good things have vanished. You find yourself surrounded by impoverished beings, those who are without the happiness of an emotional state of peace. These people will be upset. Recognize your need of them to produce the lessening of your own anger. So all of these impoverished beings are without the calm of the elevated states of consciousness. Realize that you need them to develop the four immeasurable states. So imagine that you recognize that your happiness and fulfillment of your ultimate spiritual aims depend on others. So make a wish that all sentient beings have the causes and conditions for every form of happiness. And recollect the essential meaning of the verse of Shantideva, that whatever joy there is in this world, all comes from desiring others to be happy. And whatever suffering there is in this world, all comes from desiring oneself to be happy. Now breathing in through your nostrils. Exhale through your mouth. Allow your attention to come back to the screen. Move your body in whichever way you'd like to. Okay, so let's now move on to the second section of our teaching. So here we're going to be looking at the different types of happiness that exist. And after that, then we'll look on a section about what do we mean by love. So the forms of happiness, the types of happiness, here are, I think there's about 6 of them, 5 or 6. So first of all, we need the basic life requirements. Like I said, the meditation, food and drink, shelter, that sort of thing. Without food and drink, I mean, all of us go a little bit nutty, don't we? I get quite upset when I don't have enough to eat. We lose our patience. And if we didn't have clothing or shelter, and access to medicine and so forth, life would be very, very difficult. We wouldn't be happy. They're what we call social norms. So here we're talking about sort of good government, good governance, emotional peace. So access to psychologists, for instance, access to the Dharma. Then we call these are more deeper forms, deeper types of happiness. And so what we're going to do is just go through and have a look at all of these in a little bit more detail along with the slide. So the first one, the basic life requirements, food and drink. They bring good health. We need food and drink to be healthy people. We need shelter to have the body protected. We certainly need clothing. There's the different changes in climate and so forth. And medicine is always very useful. Most of us, as we get older, we get sick. And in fact, from the day of our birth right up to where we are, we've always experienced periods of sickness. So in general, these are the four major things, but of course there are others, like safety, money, possessions, friends, some way of changing our consciousness. Now you'll notice with these that even if we had them all, it's not always certain that we'll be happy. We could have all of this and our happiness would diminish, wouldn't it? In fact, we've probably all got food and drink, shelter, clothing, and access to medicine. And we still find our mind fluctuating between states of happiness and unhappiness. So this is not enough, but we do need it. It helps. Second quality, as I mentioned, was the idea of social norms. So here, we live in societies, we live surrounded by other people, and there's a political system in place. So we know that some are pretty good and some are pretty terrible. And the terrible ones make it very difficult to be happy. Economic systems that function and support others. So I know at different stages in the world history, we've had great depressions that take place. Sometimes there's major fluctuations in the stock market, and all of this really affects people. A good social system. Employment. So these all contribute to what we call like happiness, but they also can bring about states of unhappiness, can't they? When they change, because they're all open to fluctuation, and many of them are not within our power. So we need good ones that support us, and then happiness comes a bit easier. We know that when they're not there or they're not functioning very well, it's difficult to be happy. There's the emotional piece. So here I'm talking about life has to have some sort of meaning for us. We want meaning in our lives. And for many of us, it takes a long time to realize that we have to create meaning. Meaning's not just out there in the world. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people think it is out there, that we'll just do all these things that we're encouraged to do, and that we'll find meaning in it. But in fact, what often happens is the opposite way. But we want to be accepted by others. So psychotherapies, psychologies, these sort of things can help us. Other practices I find quite useful are non-violent communication, secular mindfulness practices. But again, the states of happiness don't last very long. They come and they go. What we can find is that if we engage in secular mindfulness skills, it probably means that we're sitting down and we're engaging in some sort of meditation practice. And we'll find that our states of meditation are deepened, become more absorptive. So these are called the states of serenity. So if you engage in the 9 stages to develop calm abiding, this is what I'm sort of talking about here. But also practicing the 4 immeasurable states. They can lead to deep states of concentration, which are called these 4 jhanas. And they can lead to what they call the 4 formless absorptions. So here, of course, the happiness and pleasure are much deeper than the previous 3 that we had up there. But you can't keep it up. You know, you come out of these states and then you're back in the world again. So they will impact our world, the way we live, much more deeper than the other types of happiness. And so in the Buddha Dharma, these states here are encouraged, but they're temporary. We must remember that they're temporary. While we're in them, everything's fine. We come out of them, we've got to face all the problems of the world again. So, but they will affect our mind state. So the stable, long-lasting happiness that we need to remember to wish that others have and that we ourselves have are these 2, nirvana and Buddhahood. So in these states, the causes of suffering have been completely abandoned. So suffering can't come back. So this is the place we can have this a long-lasting, stable, authentic happiness. It involves discovering the ultimate nature of the mind and seeing that within that nature, difficulties do not exist. So there are no afflictive delusions and no cognitive delusions. So here's a little pause again. We can think about what might be interesting. Yes, Maitri.
Yeah, it really struck me how, especially those the social ones, how little control we have over them. So having our our sense of well-being completely tied up in them is just a devastating situation to be in. There's got to be some other way, because us little people have no control over most of that. I mean, we've got a little tiny bit, but not generally.
Yeah, you'll see that all of that is highly dependent upon our senses of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching, isn't it? And then, of course, thinking too. You know, our mental capacities are all involved in it, but all the phenomena are sort of out of our control. And it's only with the last 2 that we're sort of bringing a sense of control, you know, back towards ourselves, isn't it? And going, actually, it's my mind that is the creator of my suffering or my happiness. I've got to get control over my mind. And so the states of deep concentration help, but, you know, we come out of them. Yep.
It's quite tricky, because we can spend a huge amount of time trying to control those things. And in a way, it's just adjusting our comfort levels. And if we can control them, then we think everything's sweet. But, you know, when society changes, like here in Brisbane, you know, there's more and more homeless people, then what do you do? Does that mean that you'll never ever be happy again? It's kind of having being able to control it for a little while makes you, it's like a false sense of security, and then there's no more control left, and then you're really in trouble
Yeah.
without those inner resources.
Yeah. And what most people do is go and try and get what they used to have. Like, you know, from here in Australia, we've had the bushfires and then the floods. And the flooding knocked out there's lots and lots of people here now, middle class, living in cars and caravans. They're homeless. Do you think so? What do they want to be happy? Well, it's a new home. It's it's like it's funny, isn't it? I don't know, not half funny, but ironic. But that's as far as it goes. Is let me get back to have what I didn't, what I've lost. I remember that story many years ago with the earthquake in San Francisco, and there was a story about the Indians up on the hilltop looking down at everybody rebuilding uh, on the fault on that same land. It just everything fell over, and that's basically what we do. We just repeat ourselves. So we always have that sense of fear going with us. Our happiness is not stable. And as you're probably aware, or you might have gone through this yourself, if you've like lost your job, lost your home, lost your friendships, all of this is trauma inducing, isn't it? But then what do we do in response? So we try and find a new friend, try and get a new job, try and get a new place to live. So we leave ourselves open again.
Well, we've got this saying of we will rebuild,
Yeah, that's right.
and rebuilding right back in the floodplain, or right back because we like the community, I suppose. And so then there's people in New South Wales that have been knocked out of their houses like 3 times in 1 year because of floods.
Right.
So how do we sort that out, Eddie, between that wish to I mean, it's like people wish to rebuild their house there, whereas actually what they really want is a community. That's why they want to be there. But it's hard to sort it out.
Well, like I'm saying, it's not the idea is, we like I said, we do need shelter. We do need communities. But to think that that alone will provide a sense of stability and happiness, that's a mistake. There are conditions required, but happiness and suffering come primarily from the mind. So we have to develop the mind. And often we don't. We just develop our house, our property, our status at work. The mind is left out of it. And this development of the mind, as you see, normally it's focused. It's just on us, isn't it? We're focused on ourselves. But if we wish to go beyond this idea of selfish concern, we need to focus on others. We need housing, all that sort of thing. It's required. It's in the baseline, but then we have to go beyond it. Because so I've had periods of homelessness and loss of all friends and loss of all my money, all that sort of stuff, right? So what you find, what's strange, is that you're okay. I keep thinking, as long as you're not dead, you're okay. That's what you find out. It's amazing. You can bear it, and you just start again. So I always found, wow, like I'm not too upset about this. So that was, I found that very surprising when that happened to me. So I realized, heck, my happiness is not dependent upon my partner or living in a particular place or having a particular job. I'm okay without it. So like how? Why? So then that makes you sort of quite interested in your mind, doesn't it? Okay, let's have a look now at next meditation. So again, folks, just get comfortable in the seat. Just adjust your posture, have your back straight. You close your eyes and just come back home. Acknowledge your own breathing. Feel present. and recollect the first four types of happiness. There's the basic requirements for life, social norms, emotional peace, and meditative absorption. So imagine you have access to food and drink, shelter, clothing, medicine, friends, and entertainment. What else is required to be happy? Well, social norms contribute to happiness. So imagine that you are living within a loving family, and this family is within a functioning political, social, and economic system. Would this be enough to be happy? If so, if it is enough to be happy, what type of happiness would this be? What would its nature be? As this happiness is dependent upon outer forms, the nature of the happiness would be transient, impermanent, subject to change. So now recollect that even though you might be in this loving family within a functioning political, social, and economic system, you would also want to be accepted by others, to live a useful life, and to live a life with meaning. So imagine that all of this comes to pass and you are at peace emotionally. Now imagine that state of peace deepening through meditative absorption practices. Could your happiness be any better? If your happiness could not be any better, why? But if your happiness could be better, how? Imagine you could remove the causes of your own suffering. Is that possible? Imagine that it is possible. Would you not want to do the same to others? Would you not naturally feel inspired to share the secret of happiness with others? And if you knew how to put an end to your own suffering, surely you could impart that knowledge and the skills required to do so to others. So decide for yourself whether this is something you'd like to do. And then breathing in deeply. Exhale through your mouth. Allow your eyes to flutter open in your own time. And again, move your body in whichever way you'd like to. But once again, you feel easy and comfortable. Now this course, okay, Barbara, yep. What do you'd like to ask something, say something? Bob? Your sound is off.
I couldn't find my unmute button.
Okay.
I guess what I was thinking as we were doing that meditation is the basic one for me, along with food and shelter, is access to the Dharma.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where does that, again, access? Because if I didn't have access, I can't get to probably 4 and at least, especially 5. That seems like there's a gap there.
Yeah, well, that'd be like in the social norms. You know, we have education, communication systems all set up, that sort of
Got
thing.
it. Okay.
Okay, let's move on then now to this idea of love, and especially as it's sort of known in the West. So, as you probably know, our understanding of love is mainly comes from the Greeks. So, in the Western traditions, there are mainly 4 types of love. The first is called libido, and this is one we're very familiar with. It's called desire, lust. So when I remember when I first heard this term loving, we have to have love towards one another, because this is the one I sort of grew up with most, and romantic love. It's like it's a little bit funny, eh? It's like, hang on, how is this going to work? Because all my understandings of love are the relationship kind with other women. You know, you pursue other women. If you're lucky, you end up together for a while. But gee, it's really fraught with difficulties, especially when you're a young person. But never mind, this is the first sort of desire, like I said, the desire for sex and lust, in the Greek called libido. The second is called eros. So this is the drive of love to procreate or create. The Greeks call it as an urge towards higher forms of being and relationship. So you'd find a lot of artists would be in this section here. The third is called philia, and this is friendship or brotherly love. And the last is agape, or caritas in the Latin. Now, this is a love which is devoted to the welfare of the other. Its prototype is a love of God for man and man for God. Now, when we look at this, and in terms of, we move now to the Buddhist presentation of love and kindness, it's got all these three aspects in it: creation, friendship, and others' welfare. The one that's not in it is this first one here. Here, this would be called attachment. Buddhists would call this part attachment or lust, desirous attachment. So this one we can't sort of build on in the sutra methodology, but we can with the other three. Of course, in Tantra, we take the desire, the energy of desire, and work with that. But for this, of course, this is not like ordinary desire. So these three here, like I said, are useful from the Buddhist perspective of looking at the development of love and kindness. And in general, our human experiences of love is a sort of a blending of all of these. Now, our next section we're going to deal is with the ability to love oneself. Because it's from this basis that we move on to the love of other in terms of love and kindness, wishing others well. But there's a way of loving oneself that's really problematic, and there's another way of doing it which is very good for us. And if we can love ourselves without what we call self-indulgence, then we have a genuine self-love, and this enables us to love others. So self-love cares for self and others in an expansive way, and it enables us to live harmoniously with one another. So it's much like self-respect. Being able to love ourselves in a realistic and practical way. So if we are working towards spiritual goals, then this is a way of loving ourselves genuinely. If we are seeking to put an end to our own suffering, this is a sense of love and concern for ourselves. In fact, this is the basis for renunciation. Now, what brings about the sense of self-indulgence? What gets in the way? Two states. One is called self-centeredness, and the other is, of course, this self-indulgence. So let's have a look at these. The self-centeredness is manifests itself in this: we are number one, we are more important than anybody else. So our happiness, of course, is more important than others, and others are to be used by us for our own pleasure, for our own needs to be met. The second is called this self-indulgence. So I was thinking when I put the stuff about the bucket lists, I've heard this term, that we have to fulfill these wishes that we put in a bucket. But again, these are also fraught with self-attachment, and they're often unrealistic, leading to anxiety and guilt when we cannot fulfill them. So when we have this, like I said, like a wish to put an end to one's own suffering by abandoning its causes, this is genuine self-love. if we can find, if we can acknowledge that this is possible, we can extend that same concern to others and help others do the same. But again, what will often get in the way of these two mental states, self-centeredness and this form of self-indulgence. So I found this list on the self-indulgence side very useful for myself, because you can just ask yourself very quickly, is this about me or the other person? So it's just primarily me, and it's not like putting an end to suffering. It's not like, I'm going to do this to stop the causes of suffering. It very quickly, I'm just indulging my own desires. That's not going to work out. It's the way of sort of using people as objects. So, Miffy, I see you leaning forward. You have something to say, yeah?
Yeah, the bucket list I find really interesting because, recently I went on an overseas trip and there was some bucket list things like, seeing Venice and whatever. But of course, when you do these things, they never turn out like you expect. So I saw a whole lot of crowds and I was very squashed in Venice. And so if that's all that I was after, I would have been really disappointed. And I also went on a river cruise and then the river dried up because of global warming. So there was no river for the river cruise and everybody was really upset about it. But what saved it for me was actually thinking about others, about the climate, and having this firsthand experience. It's probably a bit of a waste of money, but it was a really powerful experience to just see humanity and what we're doing right in front of my eyes in this new way. And then, so that wasn't on my bucket list, but that was the thing that I took away from it that stayed with me.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Actually, and also, Eddie, the other thing that really struck me was when you said about self-respect being a way to love oneself, because when people are acting really badly, that's the thought that comes to me, is that they have no self-respect, so they letting themselves go, they don't value themselves.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that brings into mind the mental factors of shame and embarrassment, which are seen as positive mental factors. So we use these two factors to remind ourselves to be respectful to oneself. One of the most simplest things you can recall, I think, is that, hang on a minute, you say, no, I'm a Buddhist. I've taken refuge. I'm a Buddhist. I can't do that. Those sort of things. It's really embarrassing, right? Here I am calling myself a Buddhist. I've taken refuge, and then I'm about to do this. Like, have a little respect for yourself, right? That's what we need to tell ourselves, isn't it? No. That's not going to work out. I'm not going to indulge myself like that and then look back on it with embarrassment. So let's now come back and have a look at what we really mean by this loving kindness. So the original words, as you can see, are like Metta and Maitri, and they've been transformed to the English language into the term loving kindness. So I was quite shocked to see that it actually means this, a sense of friendliness, that you have a sense of goodwill towards others. So Alan Wallace says, the word for loving kindness in Sanskrit is Maitri, or Metta in Pali, which is related to the word for friend. This is a prosaic translation for this word is simply friendliness. In English, friendliness describes a mode of behavior, a friendly way of behaving. So that's certainly a component of the meaning intended here. But loving kindness is essentially a quality of the mind. Although, of course, it does express itself in behavior. So if we have loving kindness, we will be friendly towards others. We will have a sense of goodwill towards others, and that will be seen in our behavior with others. The essential nature of loving kindness is a yearning that the person on whom you are focusing your mind be well and happy. And you can expand this yearning in a prayer that's, like I said, enormously rich. So this is where we take like ourselves, for instance, we have this wish that we be well and happy and healthy and have meaning in our lives and find a spiritual path and have access to Dharma, like Barbara said. Then we can wish that others have the same. That you're perhaps your parents who've never come across Dharma before, but might the same thing happen for them. Your children that probably at present are not interested in Dharma at all, right? So, wow, gee, may they find a way to the Dharma. May they find an authentic and legitimate teacher and develop a rapport with them and put some of the teacher's instructions into practice so that they find, oh my gosh, my life has improved. It's become a little better. So I was, I'm a little bit shocked with this because I know with myself, I have to, it's only in hindsight that I look back in my own relationships with women, realizing that I did want them to be happy. It's only when really difficult things happen, isn't it? When they're struck down with an illness or an accident or something bad happens to them that you finally realize, oh, actually, you're trying to do things to increase their happiness or decrease their suffering in some way. But until that actually happens, I don't think that. Right? I was sort of, for a long time, you just see them as like objects that are contributing to your happiness. They're there to make me happy.
It's really amazing when you talk about it as friendliness. It shows it's so easy. You don't actually even have to do anything. It shows that's a state of mind because you can be in a friendly state of mind the whole time. Whereas, like, when you think about loving kindness, it's like almost sometimes there's a feeling of helplessness that you can't do anything. But with friendliness, it's just there.
I know. That's what I liked about it. Oh, I wish I'd known this a long time ago. So I can do that. I can be friendly towards people. But it doesn't have much reason behind it, does it? It's just, you might find me a natural friendly person or you like to make friends. But with the Buddha Dharma, it's like it's supported by all these reasons, like we've discovered in the six perfections, that your own happiness is dependent upon that other person. Like all the different types of mental qualities you're trying to develop are dependent upon the other person. Wow, how lucky you are to have them in your life. So yeah, it just helps you increase your own friendliness towards them and perhaps deeper forms of care. Which leads us into the next slide. So this is concerned with these sort of the development of love through three different forms. The first is called affectionate love. So affectionate love is a mind which is unmixed with desirous attachment. And it sees the other person as pleasant, likable, or beautiful. For example, like in this picture, when a mother looks at her children, she feels great affection for them and perceives them to be beautiful, no matter how they appear to other people. Because of her affectionate love, she naturally feels them to be precious and important to her. And this feeling that they are precious and important is called the cherishing love. And because she cherishes her children, she sincerely wants them to be happy. And this form of love is called the wishing love. So you can see the wishing love arises from the cherishing love, which in turn arises from the affectionate love. And we need to develop these three forms of love ourselves and have them directed towards others. So I was saying to the class last week, one of the women who was a student here for a number of years, had a lot of difficulty in her life, couldn't find any meaning in it, and was engaging in behaviours that were a little bit dangerous for her. But out of these behaviours, she found herself pregnant and then gave birth to a child. And her whole life turned around. And it was because of these three types of love that she had to her children. And I remember her saying this to me, that she'd never experienced anything like this before in her life, and how it was utterly transforming for her. And I just remember thinking, this is the love that the Buddhists write about in their texts, to be directed at others. And how lucky she is to have discovered this type of love. So if we just go back. If we go back to this cherishing love here, so this is not so difficult when it comes out of the affectionate love. What we need to do is try to understand why we should cherish others, and then make a really firm decision to do so. Then we cultivate our understanding of the decision, and then in dependence upon that, our cherishing love becomes deep and powerful. Then we try and carry that into our daily life. So there's two main reasons for the cherishing love. One is that we understand that others have shown us immense kindness. So we'll go into this next week, where we look at I'm going to take these three forms of love and then show how we develop them in the Mahayana, in the 6 causes and 1 effect practice, because these are all within that. So we need to remember that others have shown us immense kindness. And the second is that it's got enormous benefits for us. And of course, it leads to this wishing love. And then the wishing love, of course, is this foundation for compassion. We can use these 3 forms of love to build upon one another until we actually have a love that is without any desirous attachment within it, that's sort of purified through reasoning. So we build our love. So, as Barbara rightly pointed out, when she was like looking for access to Dharma, this is the love we should remember to direct towards others. May you find a path. May you find a proper spiritual mentor. May you find somebody you can depend upon, someone who's authentic. May this come about for you. Because this is the only, this is the way to actually find the happiness we've been seeking. So here, His Holiness says, our wish for sentient beings to have spiritual happiness entails wishing that they have all the conducive circumstances needed to meet, learn, and practice the Dharma. Beginning with having a fortunate rebirth, meeting a qualified spiritual mentor, and having supportive spiritual friends and environments. So I figure that all of us that are here today engaged in this teaching, we know our lives are better than what they used to be. If we know others that are not living a life similar to our own, their life could become better too. Like, if they could find spiritual mentors like His Holiness, like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, like many of the other teachers we've come across, we know that these people have great acceptance of us. They are kind, they do wish to help us put an end to suffering. They're teaching us the methods to do so. So our wish for others to be happy, try and always put that in there. It's like, often I think when we make the wish that others be happy, we're talking about the effect, right? That they are something happy. Right? But effects depend upon causes. Right? So when we say like be happy, what we should be doing is directing, may you find the causes to bring about authentic, long-lasting, liberating happiness. Otherwise, we wish for others to be happy. We're going to find that we're wishing they've got food and shelter and education and they can get to work and they've got good jobs. That's all effects. Right? Easy to do, simple to do, and you might even find it. I shock myself when I do this. Oh my God, it's like I've just gone like ordinary effects, or otherwise it's just words. So I mean, it's true that it's a great effect to have a teacher come to a Dharma center that you can be at. But that center and that teacher required causes for them to be there, for that building to be there, for you to be there. So unless your friends and family have the causes in place, it's not going to happen. So I just, wish for the causes. I mean, I think it says in that prayer, isn't it? May you have happiness and the causes of happiness. May you be free from suffering and have the causes for freedom.
But Eddie, I never put that together, that actually what I spontaneously wish for people is the effects of happiness. I didn't just put it but now that you've said it, it's just blown my mind, because that's just not enough, is it?
That's right. No, it's not enough. I mean, it's many of these things that we wish for others, we've got ourselves. And is it enough? Not enough for me. like you say, Barbara, I want teacher, I want teachings. I want to hear this again and again. I want a community of spiritual people. I want what I got like now. Barbara.
I guess the question I have is, how much influence does one have on the cause for someone else? I don't know how I don't know how that works.
Okay. So when we wish that others have happiness, of course, and the causes of happiness, where that's really working is on us. That's where it really works, because we have made the wish. Right? You remember cause and effect?
Right. Now, I guess I'm thinking that the cause for happiness, or the cause for being drawn to the Dharma, the cause for, it seems, many things, is your karma.
Yep, that's right. Especially from the point of view of the other person, yeah.
So then what impact or what influence can I have on
Okay.
that cause
Yep, yep. On
for
your
someone else?
if you can demonstrate it through your own behavior. So yeah, so here, this is just what we're talking about here is just the mental business. But loving kindness is mental. So we wish that they have the causes of happiness. So we know that one of the major causes for happiness is virtue. May they have virtuous minds. So everybody's got some virtue. We wish that it be more developed, that the hindrances be eliminated. But all of that is dependent upon the other person, isn't it? But still, like Barbara, if those people have some way of seeing you or being in touch with you, then it's the behavior. Yeah, so the behavior might be acts of generosity. You don't harm them. You are patient with them. And just by the by, you have the conversation over tea or a coffee or something like this, and you say, "Wow, I was off. I did a retreat the other day with Geshe Zopa or something. It was amazing." Da 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 da, and then they see your enthusiasm. And they go,
And
"Oh,
then that's a cause perhaps for them.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. Yeah, so you act as a condition for them, or it's just not the substantial cause. You know,
Because the
that's all.
cause is their karma. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
that's right. That's their business. They got to work with that. Yeah. Okay, so let's come now to our meditation. Again, we're sitting there, we're breathing normally and naturally. We understand that we've been looking at these different forms of love. And we began by looking at libido, eros, philia, and agape, all Greek terms for the development of love. So do you remember which one of them is most unlike love and kindness? So this was the first, libido, or lust, the desire for sex. This is unlike love and kindness. And of those most like love and kindness, remember what the focus of eros was on. It was higher forms of being and relationship. And the focus of philia and agape, the focus is others, sentient beings. So imagine having so much concern for others that you're able to live harmoniously with them. Your self-respect has allowed you to love yourself without self-indulgence. So how does self-indulgence prevent harmony? It has unrealistic expectations of others. It's fraught with selfish attachment. And what do you think the root of self-indulgence is? It's self-grasping. So how does self-grasping prevent harmony with others? Well, the happiness of others is less important than your own, and others are used for your own pleasure. But if you imagine that your self-respect has allowed you to love yourself without self-indulgence, imagine building on that foundation 3 forms of love. What would they be? You'd begin with affectionate love, then cherishing love, and wishing love. And what wishes for spiritual happiness could you imagine for others? So imagine that all beings live in harmony upon karmic dependence and selflessness, and imagine all your wishes coming true. And again, breathing in more deeply through your nostrils. Exhale through your breath, through the mouth, and just open your eyes. Find yourself in front of the screen. And we've come to the final slide in our presentation. What's the takeaway? So you have some knowledge of the different happiness types. You also know the different Western and Buddhist love types. And hopefully you know that loving kindness, loving others supports your own spiritual growth. So for it to support our own spiritual growth, make the wish that others are supported in their spiritual growth. So read, if you have any material on loving kindness, read anything you can about it. And next week, we're going to talk about developing these forms of love, in particular in the 6 causes of one effect meditation. And we could dedicate the merit of you and I engaged in this teaching today. So please join me in saying, due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel, bodhicitta, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline but increase forevermore. And as long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, may I too remain to dispel the sorrows of the world. And in wishing for the return of the reincarnation of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, our spiritual teacher, and the founders of the FPMT, let's say this prayer together. In holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make this request. So we've come to the end of our teaching today, everyone. Thank you for being here. Lovely to see you again, Barb. Good seeing you, Sharon and Shayla.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you, Anne. And anybody else who's done I've missed out. Thank you for all being here, engaging with the teachings, and let's see each other again next Monday.
Thank you, Eddie.